we got the nickname Lil Chirac or the Dirty D, like Detroit, so we got a lot of bad rep when it comes to like Illinois towns. But Decatur is a lot more good than just the shootings. The pandemic really opened up my eyes about a lot, but I would say the main thing is really just the fact that we are our own individual person, and authenticity is something that you have to nurture within forever. As an entrepreneur, I realized that the pandemic hurt a lot of people, but it also started up a lot of people because they realized that they weren't essential. So I might as well become essential to myself if I'm not essential to my employer. It really made me realize that you actually got to work to build your dreams, like on every level.
Amani channel here. This is Seeds of Awakening, where we explore all things spiritual, the spiritual side of life. And if you like this kind of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment, do all those social things that help us get discovered by a wider audience. My guest today hails from Decatur, Illinois. He's a young man. He's definitely in his younger age compared to a lot of my other guests. Very intelligent and wise and a thinker. His name is Travonn Madding. I actually connected with him on TikTok, and as soon as I asked him for an interview, he was like, let's do it. So he hopped right on. We set up a call. And this is Travonn Madding. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brother Amani. It's a pleasure to be here. Yes, my name is Travonn Madding. Also goes by Wise Yen on TikTok and Instagram at Vaughn to Wise. So, yeah, let's get
So let's
into
just
it.
hop right into it. You're from Decatur, Illinois. So that's kind of like middle Illinois. Kind of describe what the community's like and what life was like for you growing up.
Okay, so Central Illinois is kind of like, I would say it's very country, but also mid-modern city-like. So it's a little mix. Um, Being from Decatur, it was like a really transition of eras because I grew up in the 2000s. So it was kind of like a transition from the 90s world going into the modern day technology, everybody on their phones world. So I grew up like having fun, playing outside like a normal kid, but I also grew up as a teenager, finally getting the first phone, finally being on the tablet, finally getting laptops and devices. So seeing how the world changed from being a kid to seeing how kids play nowadays, it's kind of ugly, but that's just the whole world. That's just all of America right now. But from Decatur specifically, it was people being a community, and then now we're all divided by phones. So like I always had the idea of making the community stronger than what it was when I was growing up. So to see how it then got weaker now that I'm actually growing up, kind of like disgusting. But being from Decatur, it's a small town. It's not a lot of opportunities here. I would say if you want an opportunity, you got to go to a college or a community college or know the right people. And it's hard to really know the right people if you're not in the right areas, right? So if you're from the hood, you're not going to be downtown in your city trying to network with people in suits because you never even got your own suit at home. And then the fact that people was trying to survive, they got a lot of redlining. So you got half of Decatur is downtown, then the rest of the half is divided by MLK Street, which is all hood. So it's like it was a lot of survival in Decatur and a lot of people who were able to flourish because they working only at the factory jobs. It's either you work in the factory job or you working in the streets. So it's like people can work that, overlap that, put them together. But how I grew up, my family was separated as soon as I was like born. So I grew up with a single mom and my sister. My sister, she's my older sister, and she's autistic. So that kind of made me like grow up faster because I always thought like, hey mom, if something happened to you, who's gonna take care of my sister? And she made me realize that I'm gonna be the next one to do it because nobody else know my sister for real. So I
Hmm.
ended up like becoming more responsible as a child to really take on that responsibility. But seeing Decatur like grow, I realized that we got a lot more gun violence. It was a big thing back around 2020, 2021, because a lot of people they stuck inside, so everybody on the phone talking on the internet crazy. Then they see each other out, and stuff will happen. So we got the nickname Lil Chirac or the Dirty D, like Detroit. So we got a lot of bad rep when it comes to like Illinois towns. But Decatur is a lot more good than just the shootings. We always look at what happens bad in the cities. We don't really never look at the good parts of it. So like Decatur, we got a lot of educational systems that help people get back into the workforce. Like it's a program at Richland Community College here in Decatur, where they actually allow felons to go back to school so that way they can start driving CDL, driving, just getting into different work fields. And it's just really cool to see how I know some people who done changed their lives by doing the right thing, doing it the right way, but just in God's timing. So it's a mix of positive and bad country and city, I would say in Decatur.
Gotcha. Was religion a part of your upbringing?
Religion was and it wasn't. I would say, um, I don't remember much of going to church as a child until I got a little bit older, maybe around like my double digits before my teens, maybe preteens. My family, they didn't really maintain that religious aspect of their life whenever they got older, but when they were children, they went to church as well because I think that was just an era thing. But once we got older, it was like we was such in a state of survival, we didn't have time to go to church. So it's like we didn't really want to go be around people that's going to judge us when we are already trying to survive and hear what God can say to us to make us feel better about surviving. So once
Mm,
we started getting better at survival mode, getting better in our habitat, it's like we wanted to go to church because we thankful that God got us to this point in life where we're not really struggling that bad, but we still might have to use our survival tactics just to eat the way we got to eat. And once I started getting older, I realized that church ain't really for me. It's not like something I can subscribe to because it's too many boundaries and limits when it comes to questions that I want answered about my reality. Because I'm very good at science and mathematics. So when I ask scientific questions or mathematics, it's kind of like I don't get to have a direct answer. I get to have the answer that's spiritual and just have faith even when you don't know the answer. It's like, nah, because questions can't be answered. You kind of just put me off to the side. I need to have this answer just so that way I understand what's going on with the story or with the scripture, whatever I need to make math. The math need to be math, basically.
that makes
So
sense. So you were kind of raised in this kind of between era where you were raised in the analog world, non-technology, then you grew up and sort of saw technology take over. Then the pandemic hit. How did that sort of open your eyes to other realities?
so when the pandemic hit, it made me realize that I can know more than people around me and not panic. And that made me really realize that I'm a leader. Like I had to be a leader for my people, not even just people that I'm around, but people that are online and at a distance that are in my shoes and they don't really know what's going on because they don't know that they're a leader. Because it takes a leader to recognize a leader. So when you see leaders that stepping out and they doing stuff in the community, and people just might just say like, "Oh, they just saying some crazy stuff." They're not gonna see the value of what that person's saying because they don't relate to that person. So like being the black sheep, when you're a black sheep, you're gonna recognize another black sheep, yes or yes. So it's like, why would I go and follow a crowd of people that outcasted me for being myself, being the black sheep? And now that I'm seeing other black sheep come together in a platform like TikTok, now I can actually be myself in an environment that is nourishing and nurturing. And then this is actually nurturing enough to where I could go back to that same group of sheep, still be myself and not be like ridiculed internally by my own self just because I'm around the wrong people that don't relate to me. So the pandemic really opened up my eyes about a lot, but I would say the main thing is really just the fact that we are our own individual person and authenticity is something that you have to nurture within forever. And when you is running with the crowd, which is something that I kind of always did out of survival, it was something I never really resonated with. So like when you running with the crowd, it only gets you connections and relationships. But if you're not running with the right crowd, you're not gonna have the right connections and the right relationships. So
Hmm.
that's really what opened up my eyes during the pandemic, besides the economy being controlled by certain people.
Wanted to get a little bit more into that. What do you mean by the economy being controlled? We had a sort of a little conversation before this interview started about some of your ideas about the pandemic, the scandemic. Some people call it the scamdemic. What are your thoughts, and how did that sort of contribute to your awakening? I guess we'll just take it there.
Okay. I would say really the fact that there was so much fear being mongered onto the community about getting sick and seeing how people were so fearful of getting sick that they would just do ignorant things because they don't know how to protect themselves. Like the fact that we were even told to wear masks and people just obliged and wore masks. Like, it didn't really make any sense because you're not really protecting yourself from what's coming in. You're harming yourself because you're breathing into the mask and nothing's come out the mask. So you're breathing in your own carbon dioxide, which is basically not healthy. You dehydrating yourself and your what's the word? You're suffocating yourself,
Hmm.
right? So just to see what people were doing to improvise, like, "Hey, Imma put a jug on my head, Imma put some socks over my face," like, it was crazy seeing how the ignorance is popping out during times of chaos. So it showed a lot about how people are unprepared for anything outside of the slave mentality that they put onto us that we call a job or that we call the pay period, right? Because it's all just a cycle of them making money off us. Us going to work every 2 weeks is their passive income. So that's when I really realized, like, dang, everybody's panicking because you got the people that's scared to get sick. Then you got the people that's scared that everybody's staying home because they ain't spending no money. So it's like, man, as an entrepreneur, I realized that the pandemic hurt a lot of people, but it also started up a lot of people because they realized that they weren't essential. So I might as well become essential to myself if I'm not essential to my employer. So let me go ahead and become my own entrepreneur. And we've seen a lot of businesses start off in the pandemic. So it really like it was a awakening for who really wants to change their life and who really wants to just go with the traditions of society, which the traditions of society has always been corrupted and controlled. So I think that the control of the pandemic was really influential on my spiritual path because it made me realize what I was in control of. Now I'm in control of all these things and I'm not disciplined with the resources I'm having. I'm not managing the resources properly, or I'm not really clear on where I'm going with these resources. So it really made me sit down with myself and find out more about my core of who I am and what I want and who I want to become, how I'm going to make an impact on my community. And I think that helped affect a lot of people, but like I said, it affected the leaders. So now the leaders are starting to really mature and develop for the next generation of whatever's to come.
So you call yourself a leader using the TikTok platform to sort of share a message. I noticed that you share a lot of spiritual kind of insights on your TikTok. Where did those come from? Where did those ideas come from?
Honestly, always been a person that was just pondering on ideas after reading books, after playing video games, after playing sports. I would just always be thinking about, I just love information. I realized I had a good teacher that really made me love learning. So after that, I always like, I can't never go too long without learning something. I feel like my mind is stale. So whenever I'm on TikTok, it's either something that I've been thought about for a long time ago, something that's in my notebook. It could be anything. But being a quiet person that never really talks to people, like I use TikTok as my form of expressing my deep thoughts that nobody was able to talk to me about. And then also meditations. People don't really utilize meditation much, especially in the perfect season like right now, going into the summertime. It's gonna be a lot of sunshine and earth vibes. So you need to get out in that weather and get them downloads, you feel me? But when people actually sit with themselves, you gotta realize that when you're not sitting in silence, you're always consuming noise, consuming food, consuming music, drugs, whatever you use to consume and you put into your vessel, you're consuming that. So once I realized, okay, we live in a world full of consumers and producers. What am I? Am I a producer or a consumer? Now I'm naturally a producer, but I've been brainwashed into being a consumer. They give you commercials on everything that you see. That's consumerism. You're consuming that commercial. And now you're thinking about it as soon as you leave. You hear a song or a jingle similar, like, I just thought about that commercial. It made me remind me of this food. Now I think I'm hungry. Now I'm finna go eat something and actually consume it. And now you're going down the whole cycle of consumption. But when you become a producer, you're actually able to sit there and observe and actually analyze and take results and go and put it into your own creation. And that's basically what I would do. I would take my own thoughts and think about how I want to say it or think about what I feel about it and just articulate myself on a platform where people might understand. And that's where it really started. Once I got into business, it really started to make me shift my articulation into a more teaching manner because I was just saying stuff very passionately. And sometimes that rub people the wrong way when you don't got the right words to articulate yourself in a respectable manner. Sometimes the passion might be at the people or just rubbing people wrong because you just come off a little chaotic. So I feel like that was due to the pain I experienced with that passion. And now that I'm actually getting through that pain and healing through it, that passion is able to come out in a more, I would say, respectable manner and a more articulate manner that's able to really pinpoint what I'm expressing. Because a lot of
Hmm.
times being a black man in America, they always try to twist and turn what it is that we're expressing ourselves to be and make ourselves seem like we're angry and agitated. So that's something I realized about my passion. It's always going to be viewed as that if people aren't looking to understand. So it really had to make me come to peace with myself and come calm and collected.
Hmm. How would you say, being on TikTok, how have you been received? Like, how's your community grown? How's your sort of maturity or your um just your influence grown using the platform?
But when I first started, I actually had a few accounts. I had one account I was making memes. That's how I first started. It was making memes during the pandemic. I thought people would take my humor funny. Then once I started just thinking on some philosophical thoughts, it was like people was like taking it in and like, okay, let me actually get uh interactive with this video. So I said something that was kind of controversial. Like when you realize Native American people and Black people are basically the same people, and people were just eating up. Every comment had comments underneath it, and I'm like, man, I really started a conversation with this one because whether you believe that or not, you're gonna want to say something, right? Because either you believe it, like, yeah, that's crazy. People don't know that, or people don't believe it. They're like, no, you tweaking. We're not the same. But that's because they don't know about the history of the indigenous people, how there was multiple colors and shades of us. We had multiple tribes. But the fact that we were in different portions and had went down different paths of oppression, they think that we're different. So just releasing the video, it shows me, like, where my audience was, and then also it was very engaging. So the people that follow me, they I feel like they really support my content. When I'm consistent, people, like, get more engaging with your content because they like to see consistent. That's just within the audience. But even if I'm not consistent, I could, like, leave for a few months, come back, I will still have the support of people that are on TikTok at that time and able to really engage with people. Like, it's a lot of people in my audience that I talk to outside of TikTok, and we actually then built a relationship just because we think on a similar, like, pathway.
The same
So
vibration. Yep.
yes, yes, I couldn't think of the word.
It's all good. Yeah. So have you been able to connect? Do you feel like you found your tribe on TikTok then? Like your message resonates with the masses, or do you feel like more people are starting to understand the things they're talking about? How do you sort of view that?
So I feel like there's a season for everything. So at the time that I was talking on TikTok, it wasn't the season to have those conversations. It was really kind of early because everybody's still blooming. And even now, it's still like a difficult season to really talk about, like, all the information that's out there because there's so many people that still play into the matrix. But now there's more people that will be listening to that conversation rather than just bypassing it. So I feel like the season I was talking, I was also developing and maturing as a man and as just a teacher and an adult itself or a businessman. So like now, if I was to come speak my message, it would be not just about my perspective, but how my perspective can be beneficial to whoever's listening. And
Mhm.
now I think it's more of a season for that because everybody's looking to benefit them, but actually taking action to do it. Because beforehand, people were like, yeah, I want to know. But now it's like, okay, the government, 2025, everything is looking a little crazy. I need to actually prepare. Like, it's time to actually get stuff together. So now people are taking action. And since I've been in financial services, it kind of took me away from being philosophical and being down that era. Just let me share my thoughts and I had to really get to servicing people. That really made me mature as a businessman, adult, and man itself. And that's what really changed my message from, hey, we need to just do a revolution. We need to just boycott. We need to do everything that we need to do. We need to take care of ourselves to, okay, this is also a money game as well. We need to, like, actually be strategic. We need a budget. We need to actually financially plan. So once I started making content about finances, it was really hard to balance both of them. It's like, do I do this? Do I do that? How can I do both at the same time? And I think that was just something that I had to really discover when it came to building that discipline and building that strategy and organization. So now that's something I'm focused on right now is actually spending the rest of 2025 posting on both of them, building up my personal brand and my financial brand.
So what kind of financial services are you, what specific segment of the industry are you in terms of your entrepreneurial venture?
So right now I'm in the life insurance industry. I'm a licensed life insurance broker and I work with a company called PHP Agency. It stands for People Helping People. This is a roughly new business. It's not gone public yet. So it's actually founded in 2009 by an entrepreneur named Patrick Bet David. You may are familiar with him with Valuetainment on YouTube. So he actually started PHP, and he was realizing that the financial service industry is very saturated with Caucasian people, and especially the insurance industry. Now, I know when I grew up, it was always life insurance is just for when you die. The life insurance guy come knock at the door, close the blinds. We not at home, right? So we ain't never really support that and never really believed in that. Yet we always grew up seeing the GoFundmes, seeing the fish fry plates, seeing the to go place yard sales, anything to really raise that money up just to bury somebody weeks or even months later. So like, why don't we got enough life insurance? So once I actually got into the industry, it was actually on TikTok, which is why I like TikTok so much because, like, as I mentioned before in our previous conversation, I seen a video of Waka Flocka, and he was talking about life insurance, and I was actually looking to purchase a policy because I got into a car wreck. So I take care of my mom, my grandma, and my sister. I'm like, if I pass, I don't really want to leave nothing behind. So we talked about life insurance and specifically something about life insurance with living benefits. So he explained what living benefits was, which basically, if you get a chronic illness or a critical injury, you can basically use a life insurance policy while you're still alive. So I was like, dang, I know people who had a heart attack, stroke, and cancer and been in a bad accident, and that financial issue turned into a medical issue. Or I said it backwards. The medical hardship turned into a financial hardship.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, man, that's crazy. Everybody I know that went through something medical just didn't have the right plan in place. So let me get this just to be sure. And at the same conversation, he was like, "You ever thought about selling life insurance?" I'm like, "Nah, actually, we don't even got enough life insurance people in our community. You never see somebody going down your own community like, hey, you got life insurance? You know about personal finance? You know about retirement?" So once I got to the industry, it just blew my mind about everything that's in insurance because insurance is actually 60% of wealth. So I'm like, man, what? This is like going into the credit industry and people don't know about credit. So this is a whole nother industry that we always been untapped from because it's been gatekeep from us. We used to have
Mm-hmm.
bad experiences with life insurance. People come to the community and they don't even sell us a policy, but we paying them a premium every month and we think we got life insurance. Then we pass, and we don't get nothing. Or we get a little $5,000, we've been paying them $200 a month. So like our grandparents had bad taste, or not bad taste, but a bad experience with people who sold life insurance to us because there was never a person that looked like us for us to actually trust. So PHP said, hey, I'm going to take Black and brown and multicultural communities, and we're going to give them a platform where they can learn financial literacy and learn financial resources from these billion-dollar life insurance carriers, and then they can go take it back to their own communities. That way, we fix two problems at once. Now these carriers know where they can service the people who don't got their services, and the people who don't got their services can go learn financial literacy and create free enterprise and entrepreneurship by going to go teach their own people. So once I got to the industry, I'm like, yeah, this gonna go crazy. I'm finna mix this up with my spiritual aspects, and I'm finna make this a dream come true. And ever since, I've been running with that.
How's the business been for you so far?
It's really been, I would say, it's really been exciting. I've been actually in the industry for 2 years, so I'm going on my third year now. I just passed up my anniversary last week, actually last weekend on Saturday, and the first 2 years been rocky. I just came out of the door-to-door services or door-to-door sales, so getting into a new industry, it was a lot better because I had mentorship. I had people telling me like, "Hey, do it this way, learn it this, read this book," instead of just saying, here's a script, go talk to people. So I'm sitting there trying to master a script and go talk to people, and that's not really how to build a connection. So once I got into PHP, um, it really made me realize that you actually got to work to build your dreams, like on every level. When you going out and you networking with people, you networking, going to go get groceries. It's no time to go network. You're always going to be networking, and it really made me come aware to the fact that I had a lot of limiting beliefs about myself because I ain't want to go talk to people. I'm not the shyest in the room, but I'm pretty shy when it comes to being in public. I'm not gonna go talk to no stranger, right? Because they
Mm-hmm.
always told us stranger danger. So I'm like, if I ever talk to the right stranger though, you never know what they can tell me. And it was one time I actually met a stranger. I just was prospecting. I talked to him, and I asked him like, what is it that he do? And he was actually a board director of our school, our public schools. He was also head chief of our police department, but he retired from there. And he was part of another government job I can't remember, and he basically had 2 pensions, he had an annuity, he had a 401k, not to tell his business or nothing, but man had assets on assets. And I was like, man, what? I would have never thought you would have stayed in Decatur. Like, why are you here? You should be somewhere else. Like Chicago, New York. You think it's a metropolis city person or celebrity in your city, but he born and raised from Decatur, so he was just a figure of the community.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, if I be a figure in my community, I can get to that level of having assets on assets. But it wasn't until I got into this business that really made me muster up the strength and confidence and courage to go and be a leader in my community, to be that mayor that people want to see, right? Going out there, shaking hands, kissing babies, and helping people.
Do you think that I'm going to take it back to the pandemic? Do you think the pandemic sort of helped spark your awakening in any sort of way?
Most definitely, because during the pandemic, I had the time to actually take take the time out my day to come and take care of myself. With the pandemic, it really abrupted that schedule that everybody's used to: go to work, go to school, get out, go get something to eat, go to sleep, repeat it all over again. So it's like now that that cycle is broken, what do? I got all day, all I gotta do is get on a virtual class. Had school, my whole senior year was on Zoom. So it's like I didn't really have to take school serious that much more because I didn't have the accountability in person. So now I could be outside meditating and have my class on Zoom right next to me, and I just got to chime in when they tell me to, right? So I was really enjoying taking care of myself, going on hikes, just sun gazing, doing things that are healthy for my spirit, and taking care of yourself is the highest form of self love, and discipline and confidence is going to be results of that. But I feel like one thing that people overlook is that the fact that the change from one identity to another is another highest form of self-love. Because a lot of people, they want to change and then they keep the habit of what they want to change from with them on a subconscious level. Whether they do it behind closed doors, they do it occasionally. It's like they want to keep that version of themselves alive. And for me, it was like, okay, I gotta let this go and really transform. So during the pandemic, it really allowed me to release a lot of limiting thoughts. Because when you're in high school is end all be all until you get to senior year. Now that's your fun year, right? So everybody's thinking about college. Everybody's thinking about what their parents got them doing. Me, I didn't really have nobody to rely on to pay for college or what my parents had set up for me. It was just, what am I going to create after I graduate? Because now my life is mine now. Like, how I looked at school is kind of like a concentration camp. I'm basically here to learn how to be a good employee, and that's really it. So I was already thinking like, dang, it's my senior year. I should try to use some of the classes to help me build my entrepreneurship before I get out of here. So I took an entrepreneurship class, but since I already knew entrepreneurship, it didn't really teach me much. So I was like, this is all stuff I can learn on Google. Like, this is Google examples, Kahoot examples. And I think when I decided to change the identity, that's what really led me down the path, because there's an identity between being an employee mindset and then an entrepreneur mindset. And the entrepreneur mindset has a mindset of abundance. Yeah, might spend 3 years and not having a profit, but then there's no limit on how much profit I can make when I do start winning, compared to being comfortable with this minimum amount of profit I'm gonna make just for showing up. I don't gotta put in all the work. And even if I put in all my work, I'm still gonna get paid the same amount of days or the same amount of dollars I'm gonna get paid from when I was lazy. So I feel like having both to really get into entrepreneurship completely was the mindset I wanted to build. But to actually do that work and change in your mind and you're rewiring your subconscious, it takes a lot of time to be self-aware and conscious. And during the pandemic, it allowed me to really stop doing everything else and make my life consciousness first. So it's like, okay, let me put me first, put me in front of all this stuff that the world's telling me to care about. And that's
Mm,
where I really started to find myself.
great. So we almost out of time, but we have a little speed round. I have like 2 questions that I ask all my guests. The first one is what is what does the word awakening mean to you?
Awakening to me means awareness after decisions or experiences of ignorance. Once you experience ignorance and you become aware of your ignorance, then you become awakened and you can no longer indulge in ignorance the same way that you indulged before you were aware.
That's a great answer. Okay, the second question is what's the most valuable lesson that you've learned in life so far? And how old
The
are you,
most
by the way? Because you seem
valuable.
like you're very young, but you're very wise also.
I get that question a lot. Thank you. I'm actually 21 years of laps around the sun. Um, and could you repeat the question again?
Yeah, what's the most valuable lesson that you've learned so far in life?
Right. I say the most valuable lesson that I learned in life is to really trust myself and trust my intuition, trust my heart. Because it's great to be a great person, it's great to be a logical person, but sometimes people can influence you. Some people can try to, basically hijack your consciousness. And I think when you trust yourself, you're able to believe in yourself. You anything that is revolving around yourself, you could do that 1000% because you 1000% trust yourself. So I feel like if you don't trust yourself, there's gonna be plot holes that leak and show that you don't trust yourself in certain areas. That's what allows insecurities. That's what allows the doubts. That's what allows anything that's mental and coming in and telling you, hey, don't do this or you can't do this. Anything that's not in your benefit is because you don't trust yourself. So I feel like when you trust yourself, that avoids any manipulation, any gaslighting from other external forces. Trusting yourself is going to be your best superpower because God made us who we was when we got here. We just had to basically trust the process of who we were already becoming. And now that you are at this state of consciousness, trust that state of consciousness and let it allow yourself to grow into the next state.
What would be your advice to someone who's going through an awakening or they're starting to ask questions about life and they're starting to look at things a little bit differently?
I would say, for one, don't be afraid to write your thoughts down. I feel like the things that you write down, you actually get out of your body. You need to be able to materialize something, and sometimes you might not have to be able to have that conversation, or you might not be able to really find where you're thinking. Right? A lot of thoughts are just energy. So when you get that energy out on paper, it's really a lot better. But if you don't got access to paper and pen, let's say you want to get it out another way. Maybe you're not in the right position to do that. Let's say you should meditate, or I would say everything's a meditation. So I would really specifically say go outside nature. Because nature is naturally going to consume any negativity that you allow it to take from you. You can't just go in nature and be like, oh, I got all this trauma here. I'm going to go out in nature and it's just going to take it. You got to allow nature to take it by being allowed for it to come up while you're in nature and then give it to nature. Because nature is a living entity. And if you don't make a connection with your source, because we all come from nature, so if you don't make a connection with your source, you're not going to really create that clarity that you're looking for.
Great answer. All right. So if folks want to connect with you or ask you questions, how should they find you? Where should they find you, Travonn?
If you want to find me or ask me any questions, you can find me on TikTok at Wise Yin. That's wise as in wisdom. So WISE and Yin, YEN. You can also find me on Instagram at Vaughn2Wise. So that's Vaughn, VONN, number two, and then Wise, WISE. You can also find me on Snapchat at Travonn the Goat. So that's TravonnDaGoat and Travonn Madding on Facebook or Travonn Madding on other content you might find. You can ask me any questions. I love to connect with people. I love networking and I love just discussing anything that people might have a question about.
Travonn, you're way ahead of the game. You're wise beyond your years. I want to thank you so much for spending a few moments and answering all my questions.
Okay, I want to actually thank you for giving me the opportunity to get interviewed by your empowering questions. It's really powerful to see you bring people from the community up and ask about their experiences and get them a platform to really talk about themselves and their experiences and tell the world who it is that they are and how they got to where they are.